Hello everyone and welcome along to another episode of the Psychic Explorer. I hope you're well. Well, today is another guest episode and today I have my lovely friend Hayley Cossey on. She has agreed to come on and she'll be talking about her journey. The reason I've asked Hayley on is because the topic we're going to be talking about has been bothering me for a while now. Do you remember back in the very, very early episodes of this podcast, I was explaining to you that I went on the spiritual awareness course, which developed into the first circle I ever went to. In those classes, in those development circles, there were two individuals who were in attendance. They had lost a loved one in really tragic circumstances just a couple of months before we lost Mum, actually. So we were there at the similar sort of time during our grief. And I was very aware of the reasons I was there. I went in almost very secretive. I was very quiet. I didn't let anything slide. I didn't tell anyone anything about any of my experience or my grief journey. But these two individuals were very different. They were giving us the nitty-gritty. They were telling us things that they shouldn't have, in my opinion, they shouldn't have been telling us this stuff, because this stuff that they were telling us could have been really fantastic evidence for us to bring through. But because they were telling us it meant that we could no longer bring it through during readings. When we had readings with them, it was really difficult, it was really hard, because how do I know what I was telling them was something that I was feeling? Or was it something subconscious? I knew this information about their loved one, so I was bringing it through that way. And that's what I mean about the validation. I was there to get the validation. I didn't want to tell anyone anything about my situation because I wanted it to be a genuine experience, not a fed experience. As the weeks and months progressed, for me at least, it soon became apparent that as lovely as these people were and as grief-stricken as they were, and my heart bled for them, it appeared to me that they were treating this more as grief counselling. For me, that felt really uncomfortable, not only because I didn't necessarily need that at that time, and that's what I felt like it was turning into, but more because it was... More because, and as I sit here, actually, this is now dawning on me more, and this is why I love doing this, because talking into the ether, talking to you guys, triggers things within me that makes me realise why I feel things or why I act the way I do sometimes. But it made me realise, I guess, subconsciously, that the way that I was perceiving them was not how I wanted other people to perceive me. I didn't want people feeling sorry for me, thinking that, oh, he's lost his marbles, he's going to this group because he needs to get over the grief of his mum. The things I was feeling, to me, were real, 100% real. But sitting in this circle, and I hate myself for saying this because it sounds really judgmental, and there is judgment there, I know there is, but it really made me feel like it was devaluing my experience, I suppose. Now, don't get me wrong. I am 100% aware of how this all sounds. The spiritual community should be based on trust, love, in a judgment-free zone. And I've really questioned myself as to whether or not I should raise this. But the whole ethos of this podcast is my journey through this, my truthful journey, and that means warts and all. It is not something I'm proud of that I thought this way when I went to this spiritual group, because, again, I'll say it again, they were lovely people, really, really lovely, but I just felt that they were using this as a grief counselling session rather than a development circle. And it didn't sit right with me. And I don't want to sound like, oh, circles should be exclusive. But I spoke about this with Nicola in her episode. So this is something that I have been thinking about a lot, actually, since I started this journey. about, is it right to say that this journey is okay for some people but not others, if you're in this situation but not that situation? And that also feels equally as wrong to me. So whenever I think about the situation, I do feel conflicted, because there should be compassion. These people have just lost a loved one. But at the same time, is this the right environment for you to be in? And all I can tell you is that my gut was saying no. So when I moved on to a different circle and I met Hayley, I didn't know her situation at all. I didn't know anything about her. And we've worked with each other a couple of times, and we've read for one another, and it's all gone well. And a few months ago, Hayley said to me just in passing, I came to this through grief, through losing my father. I thought if I joined a development circle, I would be able to connect with my father. And I thought, interesting. Okay, so there's someone here who has clearly started going to development circle through grief, because they want to either start or maintain a connection with their father. And I wonder how that fits in with how I felt about those other two individuals in my other circle. So I invited Hayley on, and I'm so glad that she said yes, because she's been able to explain her situation, and she's been able to map out her journey as to how her grief brought her to development, and how her development has taken her through her grief. And moreover, how her development has allowed her to recognize how her abilities can help other people. So I'm so glad that I did pursue this topic, because, like I said, I was in two minds as to whether or not I should talk about it, because I didn't want to be perceived as that judgmental little bitch. Because, love, light and rainbows and all that. And actually, sometimes in this spiritual world, that's not the case. There is a lot of judgment involved. And sometimes that judgment can come from within our community, not just from outside of it. And I wanted to confront that, not only for myself, but also I thought, well, if I feel this way, then maybe other people do as well. So I am so grateful that Hayley took the time to come on. I really hope you find her words interesting. I know I did, and I know that she was able to change my opinion on this topic, and I'm very grateful to her for doing that. So here she is, my lovely friend Hayley Cossey, as we talk mediumship and grief. Hayley Cossey is a developing medium, a Reiki therapist, and an oracle card reader. She runs her business, Healing to Become, where she works with clients and helps them towards inner harmony and well-being through balancing the body, mind, and spirit. After suffering the death of her father, Hayley was set down the long path of grief. Along this journey, Hayley discovered pain, reflection, healing, and growth. And to discuss how her grief led her to mediumship, together with the inevitable pitfalls of loss, Hayley has joined me on today's episode of The Psychic Explorer. Welcome, Hayley. How are you?
Thank you very much, Matt. I am very well and very excited to do this episode with you.
We know each other from Circle, and as I said to people on a previous episode, it really feels like I'm rinsing Circle for all it's got. When I first started thinking about interviewing different people, I thought, I'm really going to have to cast my net far and wide here. But actually, there's so much knowledge within my immediate circle. It's incredible. So thank you for agreeing to come on.
That's okay. And as I said, I'm excited to share the journey, because by doing this work, you've actually made me realise how much healing I've actually done and how far I've come. So thank you for that.
Absolutely no need at all, but I'll take it. So let's get to it then. So I've already touched upon the loss of your father, but would you be able to take us back? How did your journey into mediumship begin?
Well, my journey into mediumship started with, as you said, the very sad loss of my dad. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in October 2020 and he passed in May 21. So it all happened relatively quickly and I was left feeling so much pain, hurt and confusion. I remember saying to Mum, you know, it would be so nice to be able to speak with Dad or just have a connection with Dad. And I don't even really know where that came from. But a few days later, Mum said to me, well, there's a mediumship evening happening at the local pub. And that was where Dad drank. So we decided to go along and see whether he came through. And I was thinking, I've got this feeling he's going to come through because it was his local pub, he felt comfortable there, and just something inside me said, yes, do it. So we went along and it was absolutely amazing. Dad came through and he didn't believe in any of this woo-woo stuff and he would say, no, I don't believe any of that. And his message was that he was coming through to let me know that he was trying to communicate with me. And the idea of being able to communicate with him was wonderful because it's something that I'd spoken with Mum about. And so I got really, really excited, but didn't have a clue how to even go about or start the process. Well, if by magic, the first sign came. An advert on social media was posted asking for people to join a development circle. It took me 3 weeks, though, to pluck up the courage to ring the number. But each day that passed, I had this little voice saying to me, you haven't called the lady yet, you haven't done it, you must do it tomorrow. And as the days went on, I got this pull towards just reaching out and ringing the number. And as soon as I made that call and arranged the date to go, the voice literally went, but the parting words were, job done. And it was like I ticked his box and off he toddled. So that was really my first step into mediumship.
You said a minute ago that you heard this voice within you say, do it, call the number. I wonder, do you recognise that voice now as the same voice that you can feel or hear when you're channeling your mediumship or your psychic work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And I think also I've always believed in the spirit world and I've always thought that there must be more than just we live this life, we die, and there's nothing else. I've never believed that. And I think this is why my dad came, because he knew that I had the ability, because as a child, I would always be talking to myself and I'd always be hearing a little voice and it would tend to be in my right ear. And I would go into like these full-on conversations with people. And I remember Mum and Dad always getting really mad at me for always talking to myself. And they'd be like, who are you talking to? What are you doing? And I used to feel really silly and go, no one. And it was me just feeling that because they couldn't see and because they couldn't hear, that they wouldn't understand. But now, following this path, I understand that I was communicating with spirit. And I think my dad, when passing, had realised that, and that's why he'd come.
Isn't it interesting how we look back and we recognise those feelings, those sensations, almost like I felt it back then, but I just swept it under the carpet? You said that you always believed in some sort of life after death, and that when you were a kid you were having these conversations with spirit or with this imaginary friend or whatever it is that you felt it was at that time.
Yeah.
How about your relationship to mediumship, psychic work, or spirituality? Did you have any connection to that before the passing of your dad?
No, not at all. I mean, obviously I had my childhood experience, but I lost that when I suppose I had it for a short time between the ages of 4 to 6. And then because I was constantly told off and told that, for goodness sake, just behave yourself. So I felt silly and I felt a bit shamed. So I kind of was like pushing it away, saying, please don't come because I'm getting told off. I'm not being a good girl. And that's when I shut down. And it didn't really come back until I had one other experience before Dad's passing. A former boyfriend, his dad had passed on when he was very, very young. And one night I happened to wake up and I could see this gentleman's face in the wall. And I knew by photos of him in the lounge it was him. And the next morning I said to my boyfriend, I saw your dad last night. And he wasn't fazed by it. He went, oh, yeah, Dad's about. Yeah, he's always about. And I was like, right, okay. And I felt quite privileged that I'd been able to see that vision. And it didn't scare me. It was just, I was inquisitive, but not enough to really open the gates. It really took my father's passing for the gates to really open and for me to seek.
You said two things about your mum. And it's almost like they're two opposites, because when you were younger, when you were a kid, your mum and your dad said to you to stop talking to those voices or to stop talking to them. But then after your dad died, it was your mum that suggested that you go to this mediumship evening. How did your friends and close family react when you decided to pursue this path?
To be honest, I've been very lucky with my family and friends that they've been very supportive and they've been interested in how the messages come through, what the messages are that are coming through. And yes, you're right. My mum has found great comfort in having my dad come through and being able to talk with her and just giving her the comfort that he is always around her, and that's enabled her to heal and to grow and move on. So yeah, I think there's been a bit more of an understanding on Mum's part to what the spiritual world actually is, because it's relevant, because she's lost her husband, who was her world.
Listeners will know that when I was in that situation, I knew that something was going on, but I was also very aware that I was going through really raw grief and that my mind and body were potentially in protection mode. Did any of that ever go through your mind, or were you certain that you were being pulled towards this journey of spirituality and mediumship?
Yeah, no, I definitely do feel that I was being pulled towards it, because I think I was being guided by Dad. He was showing me the sign to follow it. And the more I was following the signs, the more it was pulling me, and I felt like I was making the right decision. And in some way, my soul began to open up, and I feel it's what was needed for me, because I feel like I've come home. I feel so much love and support and encouragement that I love being in the space where I can connect.
This was back in 2021, which means that you've been involved in this, you've been developing for a number of years now. As you've been exploring this world over the past few years, I wonder, could you tell me, how has your perspective changed? How has it shifted?
As I started to communicate with loved ones, I realised that as much as I was healing from their passing, they also come through with some tough love at times, which I haven't always been ready to hear. However, a few days on, and I can always see it's come from a good place and it's for my highest good. I've also come to realise that they too still need to do their own healing once they have transitioned. So it's made me realise that they still are of their same personality and character, and they are who they were here. It's just that they're not in their physical body here on the earth plane. And that's what I've come to realise, and that's how my perspective has changed, is actually, yes, they're not here in their human form, but they've not actually gone anywhere.
So are you saying that before this all opened up to you, you had this idea of heaven or whatever it might have been, and it was them and us? It was very separate. They're in one place and we're here, and it's almost as if they were incommunicado. But now you feel they are more present, they're always around us.
Absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head. I just thought that once you were gone up to heaven, that was it. Communication stopped, and they were no longer. That their soul went up, and that was it. We had no way of contacting them. So yes, completely, my perception has changed.
How has that helped you go forward?
I feel sitting in circle has helped me massively, as it may not be a message from my loved one, but it's a message that I've given to somebody and it's resonated with me, and all of a sudden I've had that da-da moment, and I think I needed to hear that too, which has helped me then to heal another part of myself. And also I think it is a big thing about trust, because we don't have to understand the message we're giving. It's for the person receiving the message to understand. And as long as you get that, yes, that confirmation, then it's doing its job and it's healing the person that needs that healing from their loved one.
The question I was going to ask you, Hayley, you've sort of answered it already. It was going to be about circle and your grief process. I mean this next question with love and respect, because I do think of you fondly, Hayley, and I don't want to upset anyone. But were you originally going to Circle to get messages from your father to try and connect with him that way, or to develop any psychic ability that you felt that you might already have?
Truthfully and honestly, I was going there to receive the messages from my father to enable me to heal and to try and work out this confusion of what I had and where that sat with me. But as the weeks progressed, and it was very quick actually, I realised that I wanted to be able to bring through other people's loved ones and hear the messages for them, and to be able to give comfort and healing and love to those people. So, yeah, my motive for going was purely to get communication with my dad, but very quickly it became something that really made my soul sing when I was able to give a message to somebody that they needed to hear from their loved one. It was a brilliant experience.
Just a reminder, everyone, that you can find me on Instagram, Facebook and Threads, the.psychic.explorer. It really helps other people find this podcast if you like and subscribe. So if you haven't already, you'd be doing me a massive favour by getting this podcast out just a little bit further by liking and subscribing. Apparently it really helps the algorithm, so I'd be very, very grateful. But enough of the social media admin. Let's get back to the lovely Hayley Cossey as we talk a bit more about mediumship and grief. Coming from a place of someone who is grieving, because grieving never really goes away, and now someone who is developing to become a medium to give people, their sisters, loving messages. If someone's listening to this and they are grieving and they are thinking of reaching out to a medium, what would you want them to know?
I would say if you're thinking about going to see a medium, you need to go with an open mind, an open heart. And I would say talk to your loved one that you want to bring through. Encourage them to come and communicate with you, because the more you can raise your vibration and be excited for them to come, they will find it easier to connect. And the easier they find it to connect, the stronger and clearer your messages are going to be from your loved one. So I would definitely say open mind and a big open heart.
How has your experience with grief shaped the way that you work? And actually thinking about your Reiki and your Oracle reading work as well, how do you think your grief has affected or shaped your spiritual practice?
I definitely have a lot more empathy and kindness towards people since I've gone through the grieving process. And I want people to know that their loved ones are always nearby and around them. I also believe that by communicating with our loved ones, that they are giving us the strength and the healing so that we can move on and carry on with our lives. And personally, I found that having the Reiki has allowed me to open up my chakra system and delve deep into the pain, the hurt, the trauma that was caused to me, and really deal with it on that deep level that I can say I've let a lot go and I'm not holding on to all of those pains anymore. And I am grateful to have been given the opportunity to experience the Reiki, learning how to meditate, because that's another big thing for me, is meditation, is quieting my mind, sitting in the stillness, for that time for me to love myself, but also for those little gems to just slip in and you go, thank you very much.
I think it's beautiful what you're saying about grief. I mean, I know it's sad and it has to happen this way sometimes, where we have one massive hit of grief. But sometimes working through that allows us to work through all the mini griefs that we've had in our life. And I don't mean mini as if they don't mean anything, because if they all do, they all accumulate and they all compound. We walk through life, we collect these stones, we put these stones into our backpack. These stones, these issues, these traumas, this grief, it gets added into the backpack and weighs us down. And sometimes it's not until the loss of a parent which can shake that backpack empty. An experience like that can make you realize that life is short and that sometimes it's not worth hanging on to these things. These things that we have inherited sometimes, these things that we have taken on board throughout our life.
Absolutely. And I think that is where Reiki really helps, is because it gives you the time to go into a deep, relaxed state and for you to shed what is no longer serving you. And it really does go to that deeper level. And I always come away feeling so much calmer, clearer minded, and ready to face the next stage of my life.
Now that you do this work, do you find that you do it because you want to continue the connection to your father? By practicing your connection, it obviously improves and it gets stronger. Or do you find that doing this allows you to delve into you more, to understand you? Or is it a combination of the two?
No, I definitely feel there's a mixture of the two. My intention when this very first started was to heal from my father's death, but actually what has unfolded is the most amazing self-discovery. It's stripping myself back to how I was created to be. So I have lived a life where I have always tried to fit in and tried to mould myself to be liked and sometimes loved.
Mm.
But now, following the path that I'm on, I realise that I was made to be the way I am, and I am here to be who I am and live authentically. And who I am is a caring, nurturing, kind, compassionate person that wants to use the skills and the gifts and the talents that I've been given to help other people to learn to grow and live authentically in their own skin. And that's where my journey is taking me.
How wonderful that you're able to get, and I suppose this goes for everyone who does mediumship, but how wonderful that you're able to get that communication and that you're able to help other people. You're not only filling your own cup, but you're filling other people's. That's really lovely.
It is. It's so rewarding and fulfilling. And I think that if you feel that you have the gift, as we all know, we've all got the psychic gift, but I guess it's, do you have the courage and the confidence to step out of your comfort zone? And what I would say to people is that if you do have this burning desire to seek more, give it a go. Step out, because it's taken us out of our comfort zones, but I know from working with you, it's given us so much joy, and we're following, I guess, our purpose.
Hayley, what you have said has clarified things in my mind. And actually, when I cast my mind back to these two people at my first circle, I feel really guilty because I felt like I was judging them and I didn't know why I was judging them. I just knew that I felt uncomfortable because I knew why I was going there, but I couldn't figure out why they were there. And actually, that's a me issue. That's not my judgment to have. And talking to you today has really made me realise that actually it's just not my business. I'm on my journey, they're on theirs, and it's just not my business. So I really want to thank you for healing me in a way. Before I love you and leave you though, just one more question. What has been your biggest challenge walking along this path since your grief began?
I feel going through the grieving process is one of the hardest, toughest things I've ever had to do. But walking this path, it's actually changed my life completely, as I found a community of like-minded people that have supported and encouraged me. And I feel so blessed and truly grateful to have found the community that I've walked into, because there is so much sadness within you that you can't see the wood from the trees. But as soon as you enter into our space, you feel the love, you feel the kindness. So I can only sing the praises of the group and the people that are around me and supported me, and I thank them for that.
One supplementary extra question for you, Hayley. When you first stepped into Circle, how did that make you feel? How are you feeling? Because you're saying that you are now supportive, you feel supported by the people around you, whether that be friends, family, and I presume people in the Circle too. I wonder, how did you feel stepping into that space?
I was really nervous, I was worried, and even though I knew deep down this was the right decision that I was making, it was pushing me far outside my comfort zone that I'd ever been before. And it was, I guess, me getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, and also learning that there was no one there to judge me or to make fun of me. We were all there for our own reasons and for our own healing.
Absolutely. Hayley, where can people find you?
You can find me at www.healingtobecome.com. And please, I'd love to hear from you and to help you along your healing journey too.
Wonderful, Hayley. Thank you so much for this evening. It's just been wonderful.
And thank you very much, Matt, for inviting me onto your show. It's been lovely to talk to you.
It is my absolute pleasure, Hayley. You take care of yourself. Bye. Hayley Cossey, everyone. Wasn't she absolutely marvellous? And I don't think she'll mind me saying, but she was quite nervous about doing that. And I know that it took a lot for her to do it. So I want to, honestly, I know I said this before, but a heartfelt thank you to Hayley and a massive well done for doing it. It takes a lot of guts to say yes when I ask someone to come on to here, especially if they have no experience of it previously. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all my guests who have come on this year. It really is not an easy thing. You know, I prepare these questions, and yes, I send these questions out to people so that they can prepare beforehand. I am not a monster, but it is still difficult. It is still not an easy thing. It's not a natural thing to be recorded while I ask people these questions. And I just want to recognize everyone who has been on to the Psychic Explorer this year. As we wrap up the end of this year, we're very near the end of 2025. I can't quite believe I'm saying that, especially as I am recording this in the end of May. So if all goes according to plan and the scheduling is correct, then this should be going in about November, but we'll see how this goes. Again, just a massive thank you to everyone who's been on. Hayley said some really heartfelt things in her episode, I felt, and I felt as well it was really brave of her to be so vulnerable and to be so honest. The germ of this episode for me, I was very conscious that I wanted to tackle it, but I didn't want to tackle it in a judgmental way. I didn't want to tackle it in a way that made people feel like they shouldn't be going to circle, or that this wasn't for them if they were themselves going through the throes of grief. And I hope I have achieved that. I hope I have achieved that balance of asking the question genuinely, but also holding space for people's vulnerability and where they are. And as I say, Hayley's explanations, Hayley's answers has really changed my thought processes about how and where grief holds a place within spiritual development. I'm not going to waffle on too much more about this because I've already said all I need to say on this matter, and more to the point, Hayley has said all that needs to be said on this matter. So I will wrap it up here, but before I go, usually the end of these episodes, which tend to be a bit heavier or at least have the potential to trigger people, at the end of the outro music, I normally put some helpline information on. I'm going to do that on this part here. So if you are in the UK and you are suffering bereavement at the moment and you feel that you need help, Cruse Bereavement Care, that is CRUSE, they can be found to help and to guide and to signpost you if you need that help, psychological, emotional support, and that's for all ages. Their helpline is 0808 808 1677. That's 0808 808 1677. You can find them at cruse.org.uk, that's cruse.org.uk. Alternatively, if you really are in a lot of distress, then contact the Samaritans. You can find them on 08457 909090. That's 08457 909090. www.samaritans.org. Because I have quite a few listeners in the US as well, I'll also list a couple of helplines for you guys if you are in need of help or support. The National Mental Health Hotline is open 24 hours a day. You can call them on 866-903-3787. That's 866-903-3787. There's also, and I really like the idea of this one, is the crisis text line. If you are not in a place where you can speak to someone and you'd rather do it over text message, you can do that with the crisis text line. All you need to do is text the word HOME, HOME, to 741-741. That's the word HOME to 741-741. Get the help you need, guys, if you're in that situation. It's an awful place to be in, trust me, I know. But I also know there is light on the other side, so just hold on in there. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Once again, I'll leave that be, and I'll see you for my next solo episode. Sending you all my love. Take care, guys. Bye.